The Galactic Council chamber was never meant to feel small, yet on this cycle it did. Its vast rings of levitating platforms hovered beneath a domed lattice of living crystal, light bending softly across banners that represented civilizations older than human history itself. Usually, the chamber hummed with confident discourse, measured voices, ritualized pauses, the comfort of precedent. Today, the air was tight, brittle, as though one wrong word might fracture something that could not be repaired. "This emergency session is now in order," announced the chamber's neutral arbiter, its voice synthesized to avoid any trace of emotion. No one relaxed. At the center dais, a rotating hollow map displayed the Carthus frontier incident. A human colony world glowed amber, cracked by orbital strikes, casualty estimates scrolling in restrained, clinical figures. The numbers were already outdated, but no one said so. High Counselor Threxel Vienor observed the display without moving. His species had evolved patience as a survival trait. Centuries of life bred a belief that time softened all crises. Still, the silence stretching across the chamber unsettled even him. "A regrettable escalation," said Counselor Meraxis of the Ulrith Combine, her voice smooth, practiced. "The client species acted outside recommended parameters. Within tolerated margins," another counselor added quickly. "These border worlds are, by nature, volatile." A ripple of agreement followed. "Familiar language. Safe language." Threxel inclined his head. "The Council acknowledges responsibility for mediation failures. Reparations will be discussed once the human delegation arrives." That, at least, was expected. A junior analyst platform drifted forward, its occupant visibly tense. "High Counselors," he said, mandibles clicking nervously. "There is an update." Every gaze turned. "The Terran delegation has declined attendance." A pause. "Not alarm yet, just irritation." "Delayed, you mean?" Meraxis corrected. "No," the analyst said. "Declined." The word landed poorly, like a mistranslated threat. Threxel's eyes narrowed a fraction. "Clarify." The analyst swallowed. "A transmission was received from Terran Strategic Command. It states, quote, 'The Terran Accord will not be entering negotiations regarding the Carthus incident.' End quote." Murmurs rippled outward, faster now. "That is negotiation positioning," someone scoffed. "A demand will follow." "It always does," another agreed. Threxel raised one clawed hand, silencing the chamber. "Replay the message?" The hollow map dissolved, replaced by a simple Terran emblem. No flourish. No diplomatic seals. A human male appeared, seated, posture straight but unadorned. No rank insignia were visible, though the database tagged him instantly. Admiral Elias Ward. His voice was calm, almost detached. "For clarity, this is not a delay, and it is not a bargaining posture. Negotiation implies uncertainty. Our position contains none. This communication serves as notice only." The feed ended. Silence followed, deeper this time. Counselor Sereth clicked his beak sharply. "Notice of what?" "That," the analyst said carefully, "was not specified." Threxel felt something cold settle behind his thoughts. Humans were imprecise in many ways, but not in intent. They were a species that over-explained when uncertain. Brevity meant finality. "Strategic update," Threxel ordered. A new display flared to life. Human fleet markers bloomed across multiple sectors, not advancing, not retreating, but repositioning with geometric precision. Supply routes thickened. Defensive arcs interlocked. It was not an invasion pattern. It was preparation. "They are fortifying," Meraxis said. "Defensive. Understandable." "No," said Counselor Irix, voice tight. "They are locking variables." Threxel did not look away from the display. "Humans favor redundancy," he said slowly. "They do not prepare for dialogue while doing so." A junior representative, barely old enough to mask fear, spoke out of turn. "High Counselor, what if they never negotiate?" The question echoed longer than it should have. "That is not how interstellar disputes conclude," Meraxis snapped. All species negotiate. Humans are young, another added. They will learn restraint. Threxel finally turned. They have, he said. That is precisely the concern. The chamber stirred uneasily. Authorize diplomatic pressure, Sareth suggested. Sanctions. Travel suspensions. They anticipated that, the analyst said, pulling fresh data. Terran systems have already rerouted trade dependencies. Civilian evacuations from frontier sectors are complete. Complete? Meraxis repeated. That would have taken months. They began weeks ago, the analyst replied. Before this incident. The implications crept through the chamber like a spreading chill. Threxel folded his hands. He thought of the Council's long memory, of crises smoothed over, species disciplined without extinction, order maintained through calibrated suffering. Humans had participated in that system long enough to understand it. And then, apparently, to reject it. They are not asking for justice, Threxel said quietly. They are done asking. The arbiters shifted uneasily. High Counselor, do we issue a response? Threxel considered the ancient scripts, the ritual phrases meant to de-escalate. For the first time in centuries, none seemed applicable. Yes, he said at last. Acknowledge receipt. Request clarification. The analyst hesitated. And if they refuse? Threxel looked once more at the silent, disciplined human fleets. Then, he said, we will learn what comes after negotiation. Above them, the chamber lights dimmed slightly, an automatic response to elevated stress metrics. No one noticed. They were too busy realizing that the galaxy's newest species had just removed the most important word from the Council's vocabulary. Admiral Elias Ward watched the stars drift past the command viewport, their motion slow and deliberate, mirroring the tempo of the fleet beyond. The TDS Resolute sat at the center of a lattice of human warships, each vessel holding position with mathematical precision. No alarms sounded. No officers rushed. Everything that needed to be done had already been done. Confirm synchronization, Ward said. Fleet sync confirmed, replied Commander Hale from the tactical pit. All groups locked. Logistics green across all sectors. Ward nodded once. Then we wait. For the Galactic Council, waiting meant uncertainty. For humanity, it meant control. A soft chime signaled an incoming data packet. Ward did not turn. He already knew its contents. Historical overlays, compiled and cross-referenced by Terran strategic intelligence, were running continuously, old treaties, broken accords, delayed interventions. Not accusations. Records. Hale hesitated. Council sanctions are live, sir. Trade embargoes, restricted transit lanes, diplomatic freezes. Ward allowed himself a thin, humorless breath. Expected. They'll escalate, Hale added. Yes, Ward said. Because that's the only lever they know how to pull. Humanity had once believed in the Council's language. Balance. Stability. Process. It had taken 3 burned colonies and 1 billion dead to translate what those words truly meant. Negotiation was not a path to justice, it was a tool for delay. Delay favored the old, the entrenched, the patient. Humans had learned patience the hard way, and then learned when to discard it. A junior officer spoke up from intelligence. Proxy fleets mobilizing near the Halcyon corridor. Council aligned. Ward finally turned. Threat posture? Posturing, she said. They want us to react. We won't, Ward replied. Proceed with Phase 3. Across human space, the shift was subtle but total. Civilian traffic had already been rerouted weeks earlier, disguised as infrastructure upgrades and safety drills. Industrial hubs ran at capacity, not frantically, but efficiently. There were no speeches, no broadcasts calling for unity. Humanity did not need to be convinced. Memory was enough. In the Council Nexus, panic wore many disguises. They are isolating themselves, Counselor Meraxis insisted, her voice sharp with forced confidence. Economic pressure will bring them back to the table. Threxel Vienor said nothing. He was studying a different display, human response curves mapped against historical behavior. Every model that assumed negotiation failed catastrophically. They are not isolating, Threxel said at last. They are decoupling. A murmur of unease followed. From us? Asked Sereth. From leverage, Threxel replied. Another alert flared. Human channels had released a massive archive, classified council correspondence spanning centuries. Not editorialized. Not framed. Just raw data, authenticated and timestamped. What is this? Meraxus demanded. Transparency, Threxel said grimly. Weaponized honesty. Across the galaxy, client species began to read. Old promises surfaced beside casualty figures. Delays aligned with extinction events. The Council's moral authority, already fragile, began to fracture. They're turning opinion against us, Sereth hissed. No, Threxel corrected. They're removing the filters. Back aboard the Resolute, Hale watched the ripple effects propagate. Council cohesion dropping. Several client polities are withdrawing support. Ward remained still. Good. You're certain this won't spiral? Hale asked quietly. Ward met his gaze. It already did. We're just choosing where it stops. A priority channel opened, unsecured, personal. Threxel's face filled the display, composed but strained. Admiral Ward, he said, abandoning titles. You're dismantling the framework that keeps the galaxy from tearing itself apart. Ward regarded him calmly. That framework sanctioned the destruction of one of our worlds. An error, Threxel insisted. One that could have been addressed. It was, Ward replied. Internally. We adjusted. Threxel leaned closer. You're inviting chaos. Ward shook his head. We're ending a pattern. Silence stretched between them. What do you want? Threxel asked at last. Ward's answer was immediate. Nothing. The channel closed. In the council chamber, the weight of that word settled heavily. Nothing meant no concessions, no demands, no exit ramps. It meant the usual tools were useless. They're not trying to win, Meraxus said, voice rising. They're trying to collapse the game. Threxel closed his eyes briefly. He had spent centuries mastering negotiation, reading intent, guiding outcomes. Humanity had looked at the same system and drawn a simpler conclusion. Some structures were beyond reform. Back in human space, the fleets completed final alignment. No countdown followed. No dramatic announcement. Just readiness. Ward turned back to the viewport. Log the final advisory, he said. Hale hesitated. To whom? History, Ward replied. The galaxy had always assumed humanity would learn to play by its rules. It never considered the alternative, that humans would learn the rules perfectly, then decide they were unacceptable. As the stars continued their slow drift, one truth became unavoidable. The Council was no longer negotiating with the species. It was reacting to a decision already made. The Galactic Council chamber had not adjourned in 6 cycles. Representatives rotated in shifts, their species unaccustomed to sustained crisis. Nutrient drones drifted through the air. Voices had grown sharp, then hoarse, then quiet, not from calm, but from exhaustion. The structure that once symbolized order now felt like a besieged command bunker without an enemy to point at. They're dismantling us without firing a shot, Counselor Sarah said, mandibles twitching. Relay stations are offline. Enforcement fleets won't answer our calls. They were never loyal, Meraxus snapped. They followed incentives. And now? Sereth pressed. No one is offering any. High Counselor Threxel Vienor stood apart from the argument, his attention fixed on a cascading failure map. Trade corridors dimmed. Arbitration nodes blinked out. Council authority did not collapse explosively, it thinned, like ice melting from beneath one's feet. A junior aide approached, voice low. High Counselor, several member states have formally withdrawn recognition of Council jurisdiction. Threxel closed his eyes. The Council had ruled by inevitability. Humanity had removed that illusion. Open a secure channel, he said. Direct. No intermediaries. Across the void, Admiral Elias Ward received the request without surprise. Put it through, Ward said. Threxel appeared, posture rigid, ceremonial trappings stripped away. You've made your point, he began. The galaxy is destabilizing. Ward regarded him evenly. The galaxy was unstable. You just managed the symptoms. You're punishing billions who had no part in this, Threxel said. Ward's reply was calm. We're removing systems that enabled it. Negotiation could still. No, Ward interrupted, not sharply, but firmly. Negotiation is what followed the last 3 times our people died. Each time, we were told patience would prevent greater harm. Each time, delay ensured it. Threxel's voice dropped. Then what do you want us to do? Nothing, Ward said again. This isn't about compliance. It's about consequence. The channel ended. In the hours that followed, the Council's remaining options evaporated. A motion to authorize force failed when half the chamber abstained. Proxy fleets stood down, unwilling to fight without guarantees that no longer existed. Markets collapsed, then reformed along new, local lines. Power dispersed. Human fleets moved, not forward, not outward, but inward toward key infrastructure nodes. They did not occupy. They disabled, dismantled, withdrew. Relay cores were extracted. Arbitration AIs shut down permanently. Enforcement command matrices went dark. No worlds burned. That frightened the galaxy more than annihilation ever had. On the TDS Resolute, Commander Hale watched the final operations conclude. Objectives complete, he said. Council network is functionally inert. Ward nodded. Begin withdrawal. Hale hesitated. We're leaving? Yes. You realize what they'll say, Hale added. That we could have ruled everything. Ward turned from the viewport. Ruling wasn't the goal. Never was. Then what was? Ward considered before answering. Ending the assumption that restraint equals weakness. Across the galaxy, the aftermath unfolded unevenly. Some regions descended into chaos briefly. Others stabilized faster than expected, freed from distant control. Local alliances formed. Old grudges resurfaced, but without a central authority to manipulate them, conflicts burned smaller, shorter. In the empty council chamber, Threxel stood alone. The banners still hung, but their meaning felt ceremonial now, like relics in a museum. He accessed the archived human transmission, the first refusal. Negotiations imply uncertainty. Our position contains none. For the first time in his long life, Threxel understood the flaw in the Council's thinking. They had believed history moved in cycles. Humans believed it moved forward, and that some paths were not meant to be revisited. Weeks later, a new doctrine circulated across independent systems. It was not enforced by threat, only by memory. Agreements would be honored promptly. Delays would be interpreted as decisions. Violence would be met with proportionate certainty, not prolonged debate. It was not a human empire. It was a human precedent. Back on Earth, there were no parades. No victory broadcasts. Memorial lights flickered across cities at dusk, names scrolling silently. Humanity mourned privately, then returned to building. Admiral Ward submitted his final report, brief, factual, unembellished. At the end, a single line remained. We negotiated until there was nothing left to discuss. The galaxy would study that sentence for centuries. Not because it was eloquent, but because it was true.